Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, The Black Accountant. It's your boy Mo, and if you haven't already done so, you know the drill. Go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, and let me know in the comments of any kind of content you want to see going forward. And most importantly, don't forget to turn on notification bells so you get notified when I drop new videos. So today's topic is diversity and diversity recruiting. You know, everybody's favorite buzzwords. And I wanted to talk about this a little bit because obviously I have experience with it, but also because I think it's a metric that's still in the works and needs to evolve a little bit in order for it to fully sort of grasp or be able to fulfill its purpose. So what is diversity recruiting? Actually, before I even get into that, first and foremost, I do want to give a disclaimer that diversity recruiting is obviously very heavily related to race. And if race is a subject that really bothers you and it's something that you have a hard time sitting through, then this is not the video for you. You can go ahead and click off now. And also, I also want to say that whenever I speak on diversity or I speak about race, I can only speak from my own perspective, my own opinions, and my own thoughts. So therefore, I do not speak for everyone. I do not speak for all Sudanese people. I do not speak for all Black people. And I do not speak for any other ethnicity that's out there. So now that we've gotten that little disclaimer out the way, what is diversity recruiting? Diversity recruiting is sort of this this idea or this metric or developing metric to try to hire more people of different and underrepresented races and backgrounds. So in the doing of such a thing, since this is a lot more recent, it's sort of difficult to develop or decide how to go about pursuing these things, or how to go about making these hires and to go about with that recruiting process. And I remember for me in college, there were a lot of opportunities where I didn't really understand the recruiting cycle. And it took a lot of kind of communication with other people around me to figure out a little bit more about the system. So let me give you an example here. So within the California State University Northridge CSUN system that I came from, because that's the most one that I can speak to, the school itself was a commuter school. So therefore you would see people of varying ages and backgrounds kind of coming in to get their degrees. It had a really solid business program, and many people kind of came in from different ethnicities. Actually, the school's whole slogan sort of was unity and diversity. And as such, when it came time for big corporate jobs and corporate giants to sort of come and recruit, they would recruit for very specific positions from the school, which is something I learned about a little later on, because they could fill minority quotas very easily from this school. So they would come with the positions that they wanted to fill over here, and then for certain other positions, they would go fill them in different other environments in different schools. Now, that's not to say that it had like a certain bias. It's because different schools actually have contracts in place with these companies to come and recruit students from them. So there's obviously a very specific agenda, because at the end of the day, college is a business. It's not necessarily about just what's in your best interest. So what you see on campus is what the school has in contract is providing. So if you had attended a University of California type school instead of a California State University, UC versus a CSU, you'd see very different types of recruiting. So you would probably have more front end type work, like revenue generating positions, if you attended a UC school, and you'd have more back end type work, like compliance, tax audit, and just back end work if you attended a CSU. And that's not because there's a difference in intelligence level, but there's different expectations and different ways that these schools operate, where a UC school typically has more of a problem-solving type mentality, and the programs reflect that, and it takes a little bit more effort to get into those schools, whereas a CSU is more technical in terms of here's actually how to do these things rather than theoretics or theory. I'm sorry. So that's why you would see these kind of differences. And me going or attending the school, as I went through accounting, because I was the program I was involved in, and information systems, I had wanted a revenue generating position where typically that would look like consulting. And realizing that it would be very difficult to get that through the typical recruiting system that I was going through because of the diversity recruiting that was in play. And I had to figure out, how do I make this work for me? Because diversity recruiting seems like a godsend, right? Where basically, if you're from a minority background, you'll have a much more or a much higher increased chance of sort of getting certain positions. Now, what I've come to realize, and obviously this isn't true for every company, is that diversity positions typically tend to be lower level positions, and they tend to sort of also be very back end type work, like I had mentioned earlier. So that it doesn't mean that there's anything particularly wrong with it, but it just makes it more difficult to get into the positions that you want if you're trying to go for something that's more front end. And I've actually talked about this with a recruiter before, a little bit more candidly, and I'm not going to disclose her name at all, but she was very 100% honest with me, and it really bothered me when I heard this, because she had told me that the reason that a lot of diversity hires get pushed into back-end positions is because with these huge companies, when you're client facing, you're mostly dealing with white people. And a lot of times white people are uncomfortable with people who don't look like them. So especially if you are of a darker skin tone, you automatically have an impression of being more intimidating. Therefore, you don't get those positions. They usually try to put you into something that's a little bit more technical so that you're still getting the job. You still have that prestigious title, but you're not necessarily doing anything that's revenue generating. Now, this is a little bit outdated, and I really sat on this for a while because I thought about it and was like, wow, I really hate that you told me this, but at the same time, I appreciate you telling me this. And it's a practice that I definitely feel needs to change. But that's sadly the world that we live in as of right now. So I used it to my advantage in the sense that I realized that if I go through these general networking circles that my school is providing, I'm not going to get what I want. So let me use this as a training ground. So I would hop into interviews, I would talk to recruiters and practice and polish up on my elevator speech, how I would talk, what I wanted, so that I knew exactly what I wanted and how I would speak when I wanted to get into the positions that I was pursuing. So once I've kind of tackled that, I started to find my own circles of recruiting. And this is something you can very much so do through LinkedIn. So I went through LinkedIn and tried to connect with anybody that was in a position that I wanted to be in. I started to talk to recruiters for the positions that I wanted to be in, have them refer me to other people at my level and hire. So then initially, by the time I kind of did that recruiting, and I did this during quarantine, so I did have a lot of time on my hands, I ended up compiling maybe like 5 or 6 different offers at really good companies. And one of those offers was the one that I'm currently in right now. And I found that it really came down to how I sold myself and how I did it, because I did not want to come in through a diversity program. And there's not necessarily anything wrong with coming in through diversity programs, but there is a big stigma there. So the stigma that I've noticed in speaking to other people, especially other African Americans and Africans in general, when I entered this company, is that the experience is, if you come in from a diversity program, there's this assumption that you're unqualified because you're being hired strictly based off of your skin tone or just from checking a box. And obviously you can see how that's sort of a problem because it kind of starts to create this rift of opportunity where you have to consistently prove your excellence in order to get basic level positions within a firm. So if, say, I want to get staffed on a specific project, I have to show how excellent I am, rather than it just being a conversation and this expectation that because I'm already at this company, I'm qualified enough to be part of this project. So I found that it creates this internal barrier as well, where you have a harder time getting good work because there's already this assumption that people have in their mind of you of just not being qualified. So you always have to prove that you're smart without without just being able to rely on the fact that you're already there. So that's one of those things. And also it also creates competition for those minority spots. So you're looking for that token spot of, oh, they're only hiring X amount of black people, therefore I need to be one of those black people, which fosters competition between other people of your race. So you're trying to one up them. You're not trying to work together collectively to get to these positions. You're trying to be that one token person. So I'm seeing a lot more negatives that are coming with the current system of diversity than actual positives. And another thing that I've noticed within that sphere of diversity recruiting is that you need to look unambiguous. So me being racially ambiguous did not necessarily help me with when it comes to diversity recruiting, because people couldn't necessarily tell where I was from, or even if they could, like assuming that they boxed me into just being black, I would not get a position strictly based on being black because I don't look unambiguously black. They would probably choose somebody that looks very, very much so black in all their features and skin tone, so that it really checks off that checkbox. So this is what I'm seeing right now when it comes to diversity recruiting. So there's this expectation of excellence, there's this expectation of being a very specific skin tone, and then you get kind of put into this category of, I don't want to say unimportant work, but like I had mentioned before, non-revenue generating work. And they consistently rebrand these positions with fancy titles like executive delivery excellence lead or something like that, where it'll be just like a whole bunch of words that sound smart, but they don't actually, the job itself does not entail much. And also you're very lowballed in the salary that you get. So what are the actual metrics that we can kind of have in place to sort of tackle or solve or improve on diversity recruiting? And this is a question that I think is really on a lot of people's minds today, especially once you're already in a position or in a company. Now that I'm already in, my foot has been is in the door. I've got my foot in the door. Now for me, when it comes time to it, I want to bring in more people that look like me so that you start breaking down more and more of these barriers. And I had to really check my own biases, because I started thinking in the same way, where I didn't want to recommend certain people that wanted the recommendation from me because I didn't feel like they were up to par. Now they were up to par for the job itself, but I didn't feel like they were up to par at the level of a black person within a firm, which is also somewhat problematic. And I looked at it and I thought to myself, like, how do I bring in these people and sort of have them understand what it means to be working here? And I realized that it's my job now, as somebody that's in there already in this position, to mentor somebody else and teach them what it means to succeed here, how to succeed here. Instead of just kind of opening that door, there's this added level of responsibility of, yes, I can help bring you in, but once you're in, for you to actually succeed at this firm, you need to understand the stigmas that are associated with you, are going to stick to you, and how to overcome those to really navigate your way into projects to really excel or get ahead. And I think what that means from a company perspective, or what companies could really be doing right now, is to really change the metrics that they use when it comes to diversity recruiting. So number one, a lot of companies and firms, especially within the finance and consulting sectors, have development programs. And those development programs are geared at teaching you the knowledge that you need, trying to get you ingrained in company culture. And I think if there's more understanding or more cooperation between diverse people that are already at these companies, then we can have that kind of mentorship. And then from your own perspective, like me, myself, once I came in, is to understand the cultural differences. I guess a good example of that is a recent project where I was on, where my manager would communicate with me in a way that I really didn't like, because I felt it was very micromanaging, and it felt like it was insulting my intelligence when her actual intention was more so to teach And I think it ended up being something very related to differences in culture and the difference in the way that that I was raised and my background, and difference in the way that she communicated. And I actually had a very open dialogue with her about it, because I said, hey, do you mind if I schedule some time with you to discuss my expectations on this project? Like, this is what I'm expecting from you. I want to know what you're expecting from me. And this is where our communication is lagging. So I figured out how to have a little bit more open communication there. And I think that helped a lot. And I think it requires also a lot more participation on the end of us as people that are being more diverse, to come in and have these dialogues, have these difficult conversations, and then figure out where those differences lie. Now, from the company perspective, what they can do is change their metrics up a bit. When it comes to recruiting, especially when it comes to Black folk, in a racist country like America, and racist in the sense that you're more likely to be stopped by police. You're most likely to have a lot of instances or run-ins with the police. So therefore, when it comes to the background check, when it comes for work, is to have a more of an understanding rather than an immediate dismissal for having a criminal background. Having a criminal background does not necessarily make you a criminal. It just means that you were put into a system a lot more quicker than somebody else, even for very minor mistakes. I spoke on something similar that happened to me, where I broke a doorknob by accident at Cal State Northridge, and that really made it difficult for me to recruit going forward. Imagine having a lot of difficulty finding a job because of accidentally breaking a doorknob that you reimburse. Like, that's just ridiculous. So I think changing up metrics when it comes to evaluating your background and having a more holistic interview and background search could be more helpful in kind of narrowing that barrier and narrowing that field when it comes to Black students or Black professionals coming into this workforce. And also within that whole holistic interview process, or looking at your background, is understanding why people's finances might be low. And I understand that in certain positions, it could be an indicator of possible future theft. But when you try to understand a person's backstory, because at the end of the day, we are all people, we're not just numbers or cogs in a machine, is to understand that certain people have difficult experiences in life, and to move out of those positions into a better position, you're not going to automatically have a clean record. Some people, even though you've started afresh or started anew, your background will follow you for the rest of your life. And I think it's a little bit unnecessary for that to be the case. But that's the majority of what I had to say on this topic as of right now. This is definitely a conversation that's worth opening and also revisiting. So I might do a couple of parts later on about this as I experience these things, because I do have many experiences related to race within the professional setting, and a lot of experiences related to the whole diversity concept. Because I've been on the recruiting end, I've also been on the professional end, where I was interviewing others or bringing people in from the company side. So that's all I really had for today's video. Let me know what your thoughts are on the conversation in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.